Things aren't looking good for Benny Hinn right now.
Benny Hinn told millions that miracles were happening right in front of them.
Blind eyes opening. Cancer disappearing. The dying walking again. But after more than 4 decades of crusades, not one dramatic healing was ever medically verified.
In 2007, the Senate investigated his finances.
In 2010, photos with another woman leaked from Rome. In 2024, a documentary laid out decades of failed prophecies.
In November 2025, his divorce became final for the second time. And in April 2026, a court ordered his ministry's bank account seized to pay a debt he refused to settle. The man who promised supernatural power is watching his own world come apart in public, and this time, the cracks go all the way to the foundation. Benny Hinn was born Tufik Benedictus Hinn on December 3, 1952, in Jaffa, in the land that had only recently been shaken by war and political change. His father was Greek-born in Palestine, his mother Armenian-born there too, and at home the family spoke Arabic. Later, Benny would tell stories that made his family sound far grander than the record shows, including the claim that his father had been the mayor of Jaffa.
No records ever backed that up.
It became one of the earliest signs of a pattern that would follow him for the rest of his life.
He was not born into power.
He was born into an ordinary family trying to survive in a place where everything felt uncertain. He grew up in the Greek Orthodox tradition, baptized by the Patriarch of Jerusalem, while also attending Roman Catholic schools. From a young age he was surrounded by two very different streams of Christianity, icons in Old Eastern ritual on one side, Catholic structure and ceremony on the other.
Those influences never fully left him.
Even after he moved into Pentecostal circles, people who watched him closely noticed traces of that older, more theatrical world underneath the surface. As a boy, he was shy and withdrawn, held back by a severe stutter that made him easy to overlook in a crowded family. He was not the kind of child anyone would have pointed to as a future stadium preacher. Then in June 1967, the Six-Day War swept through the region and the Hinn family was caught in the wave. Benny was a teenager, old enough to feel the fear, too young to control anything around him. The family eventually settled in Toronto in 1968. That move tore one life apart and left the uncertain beginning of another.
He enrolled at George Vanier Secondary School but never graduated. The records do not match the polished image he would later present.
By 1972, he was still caught between youth and adulthood, between old religion and new desire, when he later said everything changed. On February 14, 1972, at a before-school prayer meeting, he claimed he gave his life to Jesus Christ.
He returned to that date again and again.
After that moment, he moved deeply into Pentecostal circles in Toronto, learning not just doctrine but tone, emotion, and public style.
Then in December 1973, he traveled to Pittsburgh to attend a Catherine Coleman service.
Her white clothes, her dramatic pauses, the way people fell and wept and spoke of miracles, all of it left a deep mark.
He had seen the model now.
He had seen what spiritual theater could look like when it was wrapped in sacred language and delivered with confidence.
Not long after, he claimed his stutter began to disappear.
By December 7, 1974, he was speaking fluently in public, and that became one of the central miracle stories of his life. Once that barrier fell, everything moved faster. He was preaching in Toronto church halls, calling out conditions from the crowd, telling people their pain was leaving. A woman would come down from a balcony and say she was healed.
Another would fall.
These moments built momentum because they were not just sermons.
They were events.
People carried the stories away with them. That early success opened the door to the United States. He moved to Orlando in 1979 and founded the Orlando Christian Center in 1983, giving him not just a pulpit but a base.
Crowds increased. Miracle claims multiplied.
People came looking for healing from cancer, paralysis, blindness, and suffering of every kind. On stage, crutches and wheelchairs became symbols of expectation, and the atmosphere grew more dramatic with each passing year. Then television changed everything. His show This Is Your Day began airing in 1990, and after that his reach exploded. The white suit, the swelling music, the hand stretched toward a forehead, the bodies falling backward, for millions of viewers, it looked like the power of God moving in real time. For critics, it looked like performance and psychological pressure wrapped in the language of faith.
Those critics kept pressing on the same questions. How were people chosen for the stage? Why were the most dramatic healings so hard to verify? Why did visible disabilities seem absent while conditions like back pain, depression, and internal illness took center stage?
Investigations found that people with obvious paralysis or wheelchairs were quietly screened out before they could reach the spotlight. What could not be easily faked was kept away from the cameras. Hidden camera reports described careful selection processes behind the scenes, and former insiders said the most useful testimonies were curated. One 10-year-old boy named William, legally blind, came on stage and said he could see better after Hinn touched him.
The crowd erupted. Hinn even promised to help pay for his medical care.
2 weeks later, William admitted nothing had really changed.
He had simply been wearing new glasses.
The miracle that electrified the room did not survive the car ride home. Henk Hanegraaff of the Christian Research Institute spent years searching through the claims and testimonies looking for even one case that could be independently verified: a regrown limb, blindness confirmed before an event and clearly resolved after it.
He found nothing.
At one point in 2001, he was even handed an X-ray that seemed to show a tumor before a crusade and a clean result after it.
Then it fell apart.
The images were from the same patient at different times and had no connection to Hinn's event at all. The public claims were enormous.
The proof vanished the moment someone looked closely.
When miracles did not last, the blame fell on the person who suffered, not the one who made the promise. Phone banks reportedly told callers whose pain had returned to believe harder and doubt less. The failure of the healing became another reason to stay inside the system, and another reason to keep giving.
Then came the Senate.
In November 2007, Senator Charles Grassley launched a Finance Committee investigation into 6 televangelists, including Hinn.
The concern was direct: were tax-exempt ministries funding luxury lifestyles on the backs of ordinary donors?
Grassley asked for records on homes, cars, jets, credit cards, and board meetings.
Hinn's ministry missed the deadline to respond.
That delay only deepened suspicion among critics who had already spent years pointing to expensive properties, private jets, and luxury hotel stays. The investigation eventually closed in 2011 without charges, but the picture it left behind was damaging.
Family-dominated boards, weak transparency, religious exemptions that made scrutiny harder.
The system had loopholes, and Hinn's ministry moved comfortably inside them. In 2010, photos from Rome showing Hinn and televangelist Paula White walking hand in hand outside a luxury hotel shattered the family-centered image he had maintained for decades. When he addressed the scandal before a crowd in Oakland, he called the Rome trip a mistake and asked for forgiveness, insisting no immorality had taken place.
The damage was already done. His wife Suzanne had filed for divorce citing irreconcilable differences.
Benny and Suzanne eventually reconciled in late 2011 and remarried publicly in 2013. He described it at the time as a miracle greater than many of the healings people talked about.
That chapter did not hold. Court records from Hillsborough County, Florida, show their divorce was finalized on November 19, 2025, as an uncontested settlement.
Premier Christian news: in his personal life, as in his ministry, the pattern kept returning: public promise, emotional recovery, then another fracture. In April 2024, pastor and YouTuber Mike Winger released a documentary nearly 4 hours long laying out decades of failed healings, false prophecies, and relentless fundraising.
Hinn's ministry filed copyright complaints trying to have it removed.
YouTube rejected those attempts and sided with Winger, ruling the documentary qualified as fair use. The criticism stayed online and kept spreading. Hinn appeared in response and offered what sounded like another apology, admitting he had returned to gimmickry after earlier promises to leave it behind. But once again the apology stayed general.
No names.
No accounting of who had been harmed or how much money had been taken.
For critics, that vagueness said everything. And now things have gotten worse in a way that is very hard to explain away.
A judge has ordered a bank to begin garnishing wages from Benny Hinn Ministries after the ministry failed to pay more than $140,000 owed to a marketing firm. Protestia, the company, Print Mail Pro, sued after Hinn's World Healing Center Church defaulted on payments for 8 print and mail projects. In January 2026, a Texas judge ruled in the firm's favor, ordering Hinn to pay actual damages of $144,617.52 plus attorney's fees. After no payment came, a writ of garnishment was granted, enabling funds to be seized directly from Frost Bank, which serves Hinn's ministry.
Protestia. This is not the first financial judgment against the ministry.
In 2021, they were hit with a judgment of nearly $3 million. 20 years ago, Hinn's World Healing Center Church employed nearly 400 people across multiple countries.
Today it runs on just over 20 staff and frequently finds itself in financial difficulty.
Protestia. As of April 2025, his television series This Is Your Day airs on only a single network with one weekly broadcast, after TBN dropped the program in 2016 and Daystar stopped airing it in 2017.
Wikipedia. This is the full picture now.
A man who once filled stadiums with millions, who promised that God's power was moving through his hands, is watching the institutions he built get hollowed out one court judgment at a time.
His second marriage is over.
His television reach has shrunk to almost nothing. His ministry's bank account is being seized over an unpaid bill for printed mail. The empire he spent 40 years building is running on fumes, and the evidence he always promised would follow the miracles never arrived.
Benny Hinn once told people that faith could move mountains. Right now, it cannot even keep the creditors away.